This past weekend, I spent some time with bloggers in Orange County to help them improve or get better at this thing we call blogging. And I thought, even though that was a 2 hour workshop, I thought I would try and help distill down the core essence of what I shared with them with you, so that you could also get better at writing and blogging if that's something that you're doing these days. So let's get started. Here's the presentation. And what we're going to do is step right into it. And to do that, right, we need to first understand writing, right? If you have conversations with people, if you talk, then you can write. The issue is not external, right? It's not the computer you have. It's not the hosting you have. It's not the tools you have. It is us, right? Because at the core of the reality of the situation for us is that we are our own worst critic, right? And that's not fun to hear, but it's true. So what I wanted to do was help us get out of our own head, quiet the inner critic, and answer some of the core questions I get all the time when it comes to writing. And so the first one is this, which is, how do you come up with topics? And to do that, I want to walk you through a simulation of this dynamic where I decide that I want to buy a boat. All right. So come with me on a short journey as we go to get a boat, right? First thing you know is what kind of boat you want. You look at this picture and I go, that kind of thing, right? People going fast. There's background music going on. People can hang out in the front. They can hang out in the back. It's fast enough to bring other people on it. You go, okay, so I don't know what that kind of boat is called. So I have to go to Google and I have to say, hey, I want to buy a boat. And you'll see right off the bat that I get, the first link there is a boat selector tool. So I say, hey, that's great. Let's go get it. And the first questions are like, how many passengers do I plan? What's the boat length? What kind of propulsion? And I'm like, any or something. I don't know. As long as I'm not rowing it, it sounds good. So I decide let's pick activities. And in activities, I think water sports or day cruising sound good. And I thought that would shrink down the total options, but it didn't, right? This is all and you're just scrolling through a page of options. And I think, okay, that one at the top there, that bow rider on the end, that looks like the right one. But I'm mostly doing it by saying it looks like the picture of the boats that I've seen other people use, right? And so I'm like, okay, that's good. So now I decide I want to buy a bow rider boat. And you'll see there's a link there to say, hey, top 10 considerations before you buy it, right? And I go, that seems to be like a good idea. And so it starts giving me, I go to another article, it starts giving me these things. And halfway through, it tells me, hey, or at the end of this list, are you sure you don't want a deck boat? And I keep reading through the rest of this, and I start thinking, maybe I want a deck boat, right? And the dynamic is we've already gone from the notion of just saying I want to buy a boat to a bow rider to a deck boat. Notice that I didn't even know what the right words were to look this stuff up, right? But as I got through it and I got to the end of it, I realized it was making a suggestion for me to get some help, because if I'm buying a used deck boat, there are a whole bunch of things I need to pay attention to. And as I read the article about what I needed to pay attention to, it said I needed a surveyor. Now, when I think of surveyor, I think of the guy that stands on the street wearing the orange vest, a little camera, and he's looking and he's putting chalk on the road. And I go, that can't possibly be the right guy, right? Well, it turns out, nope, we're talking about a different kind of marine surveyor, right? And so I found that link that continued on, and this is Jonathan Klopman, and he started explaining, that if I'm buying a used boat, I need to go to him or someone like him and look at all these little things that he can help us evaluate the boat, because I wouldn't know what to look for. And you go, that's great, but where do I find those folks? And now I'm looking for a marine surveyor, right? I'm evaluating all these guys, and they're saying, okay, different states and different locations will have different requirements, which makes me also think, do I have other requirements in my state? Like, do I need a boat license in California? Which thankfully they say, no, I don't. And that's good news, right? And that finally takes me back to, okay, now I need to narrow down which of these deck boats I want. And I start doing searches on YouTube, and I finally go, look, this Tahoe deck boat looks good, right? And the video and the summary, the review looks good. And I finally get back to asking, okay, how much is this going to cost? I discover it's a $30,000 boat. This whole time I've been doing this research and learning about things, and I didn't even know is this a $3,000, $30,000, or $300,000 expense? And frankly, the truth is you could buy boats at all three levels, right? Even a $3 million boat if you want. But it does make me think, boy, there's so much I don't know about this that maybe it's better to just charter it when I want to 3 times a year and skip out on owning a boat. I go through that explanation because if we did it with TVs or cars, you would say, well, I know things about TVs and cars. I don't need to go through this. But when we step into a boat, there's most people that I talk to, most people this weekend that I walked it through with, they don't know much about boats. And so you realize, just having gone through the exercise, how much we don't know. We have to discover, if we're going to write for people, we have to discover what they want. And then we have to know what information they need. And then how to explain to them their choices. And then how to give them criteria for choosing those choices. And then even a recommendation, right? And that gets us to a kind of a core truth that I think is the essence of writing for other people and helping them. And that is, you got to know where they are on their journey, right? The better that you know where they're at and what they're trying to do, what the journey is and where they're at in that journey, the more effective and the easier it is for you to write. But you notice also, there's just a ton of options to write. People go, well, how do you come up with topics? Well, the truth is, it's not hard because you know that there are people that start in a journey from being completely unaware and going all the way to being fully aware. But the first thing you have to do is get them to understand the nature of their problem, the language of their problem, right? You have to help them discuss, what is the vocabulary of the problem space, right? Is it a boat? Is it a power boat, a speedboat? Is it a bow rider? Is it a deck boat, right? You have to develop, if you even say I have a problem with the propulsion, you have to know that you're really talking about propulsion. So developing the problem space vocabulary is critical. And then you develop the solution space vocabulary, right? Oh, I know exactly what kind of boat I want. And I know the category of it. And therefore I know I can get to what are the options, right? Those are the solutions in the space. And when I know that, then I can say, okay, but what do I need? What do I care about? What are the things that are important to me? And ultimately then, if someone's selling me it, they need to differentiate, right? If I was able to narrow it down by my values and needs to the top 2 or 3, how do you differentiate? And you watch videos and those reviews, and they tell different specific stories, right, about the products and how you match up to that. And you go, ooh, no, this one is unique and special, and that's why I want Tahoe for all my deck boating needs, right? You'll also notice there's a whole bunch of different kinds of content types, checklists, stories, interviews and lists and white papers or comparisons, the head-to-head or the buyer's guide and making decisions. And at any point in time, these different content types for different parts of the journey all become useful to use when you're writing. So the next question we looked at, what are the most common mistakes that I need to avoid? All right, what are the things that get in our way when we get into doing the writing? Now that we have a sense of kind of the journey that the readers are in, understanding their objective, if we want to go after this, what mistakes do we have to deal with, right? And I walked through several of these when I met with folks and talked about it with them. The first, though, and maybe the most important, is that the way we sit down and type is different than the way we talk with people. And how we process that and how we sit down, what ends up happening is we feel more formal. There's more rigor. There's more doubt and stress about being formal when we write. And when we talk, we just say things, right? And so how do we start writing, right, with our talking voice instead of our writing voice? And it's hard work, but worth it, because when you develop the capacity to not limit your talking voice as you write, when you develop that ability to restrain the stressors around not writing in the formal voice, not having a topic sentence, not having supporting sentences, but just write the way you talk, including sometimes interrupting yourself or including not saying a full sentence, right? If I were to say, one of the things is, well, hold on, before I get to that, let me explain this background piece, right? I just interrupted myself because I said one of the things and I said stop. And we don't ever write like that. Or at least when we're trying to be formal. Yet it is exactly how we talk and exactly how we hear. And we would go, oh, totally, I'm with you. I can follow you. When we write with our writing voice, we put so much stress on doing it right that we don't write. And instead, when we start writing with our talking voice, it flows out easier. The other mistake we tend to make is we only write when we're inspired. And the truth is, you're not going to get good that way, right? You're going to say, okay, I'm really excited to write about this one post. And then, 3 weeks later or 3 months later, you're going to do it again. I challenge the folks I work with when we're talking about writing. I challenge them to think about playing guitar and playing it right the first time, or even not playing the song until you can play it right. There is no way that you can pick up a guitar, having never played the guitar or having never played the song, and just play it correctly, right? Even if you're really good at playing a guitar, grabbing a hard piece of music and just saying, I'm just going to play it right, is not the way people learn how to play a song. They practice it. And every time they practice it, they know there's a good chance somewhere in this we're going to make a mistake, and then I'm going to have to go back and fix it, and then I'm going to get better at it. And the more they do it, the better they get. And the more you write, the better you get. And the more you constrain your doubts and stressors and let your speaking voice come through, the better you get. But you can't do it if you do it once every 3 weeks or 4 weeks. So you have to write regularly, which means you can't just wait for inspiration. You have to write consistently, whether it's daily or weekly. You have to sit down and write regularly. The more you write, the better you get. The other thing people do is they tend to edit at the same time that they write, right? So you're halfway through the thing and you go, that's not right, let me adjust that. Instead of getting all the way through the end and then looking back to edit. And that will stop you. And again, your inner critic is harsh and it'll come in and it'll start, and then say, forget it, it's not worth doing this. And the same thing happens with research, right? It's really easy to get distracted. You think, oh, I have a perfect video for this. You go over to YouTube to find the video, and then you find another video, and then another video, and then it's time to leave, and then you never finish the article. Write it all. And then if you can find a video that enhances it, great. And if not, move on, press button, and forget about it till later. Research should come separately, right? Don't do research as part of your writing. And lastly, nobody needs the 45th agreement post on something. And so writing bland articles or writing in an echo chamber is not fun to write. It's not fun to read. Write with an opinion, right? Don't worry that you'll offend someone. You will. You'll always offend someone. So just let it go. Some people will be offended. Some people will not be the right part of your market, and that's fine. You don't have to worry about it. And if they come and they write extra comments all over your blog because they don't agree with you, and frankly, you're like, oh, what do I do? There's a nice little link inside of WordPress that lets you hit delete and just deletes the comment. So I just wouldn't stress about it. Those are some of the core mistakes, not everyone, and we spent more time digging into it, but to keep this tight and short, I thought we'd keep moving. So how do you find your voice, right? Well, I tend to think it's just like karaoke. You get good at one song first, you do it over and over. You want to talk about one kind of post or one kind of topic, do it and do it again and do it again and get consistent at it, and then add your own little flair, right? I have a friend who does karaoke who has not only his own style, but has a little interlude where he does his own dance moves, and he's good at that song, and everybody loves it when he does that song. And then you can start expanding to the next kind of song and the one after that. And it's the same with blogging, right? You're going to have to do something consistently. You're going to have to practice it. You're going to do it well. And then you start growing the base of whether it's the topics or the types of articles that you write. You grow it over time. Now, one of the questions I deal with a lot is how do you write consistently? Right? And I tell you that this is all about habit development, right? So same place every time, same time every time. Make sure that you're attaching it to something where you're rested or energized, and connect it if you can to another habit. So for example, I used to, when I wrote for 3 years in a row, I wrote every day. And for those 3 years, I did it every time I finished a nap. So I would work from about 6 in the morning to 2 or 3 in the afternoon, take a nap for about half an hour to 40 minutes. I would get up, I would be rested, and I would walk straight to my computer, sit down, and write a blog post. These days, I finish my workday around 5, get in the hot tub, smoke a cigar till 6, have dinner till 7:30, hang out with the friends and family, and by about 9:30, come to the computer, rested, relaxed, sit down and start writing. Have an idea journal, right? Get a journal. It could be a physical journal. It could be on your phone, a place where you see something that inspires you. Write it down. Just go, this was really cool and amazing. If you have an opinion where everyone's going left and you think I'm going right, don't stress about it. Write it down. And later, when you look at your idea journal, because you're like, I'm a little stuck about what to write about. When you look at it, if you still have passion for that topic going left when everyone goes right, write it. You use products that you love, put their names in your journal. Get ready to write it later. If you read an article title on Facebook or Twitter, someone wrote something and you go, I love that title and I have my own take on it. Don't go read the article. Write it down. A couple weeks later, again, you look at it and you go, I still have my own idea for that. Write the article. Then you can go back and look. And if you're reading along and you read some article, you think this is great content, I can take this as a launching pad and go on from there, use it as my resource or research, then jot down the URL so you can look at it later and write from there. That idea journal will be really, really helpful. In the same way that so is an editorial calendar, right? A way to just say, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm going to write about different things and the topics change, or the categories for these posts change, or even the type of post changes. And you go, well, what does that mean, right? What are the different kinds of posts are we talking about? Well, you can write how-to guides. You can write product reviews. You can write interviews that you do. You can create lists, the top 3 reasons to do this, or the top 4 options when you're trying that. You can find research or a book and review it. You can do a prediction. This is what I think is going to happen next in our space. You can write an opinion. I think that prices are too high or prices are too low. You can do encouragement, right? Say, hey, I know you're struggling with this. Here's the good news, right? You can do a spotlight, put a light on, shine on someone that's doing something really great. Or you can write a cautionary tale, right? Hey, you're going to buy a used boat. Here are the 10 things to think about before you buy one of those, right? And lastly, we got into speed, right? How do you speed up your writing? And the answer for me is always frames, right? Yes, the more drafts you write or the more you write, it will help you. Killing your inner critic, knowing that that's a negative voice that's just yours and not someone else's. If you want to read comments and questions in other places that inspires you to just go with passion, because you read that and you go, that's totally wrong or that's totally right and I'm going to write about it. Same thing with Core Stack Exchange. You see something and you go, I need to address that. But my favorite, the core of it, is using frames. Common structures that allow me to write faster. And you go, well, what does that mean to structure your posts? Well, if I'm writing a how-to, I'm going to talk about, here's the problem that we often face. Here's what I want to get to. Here's the tools I'm using, and now here are the steps. Notice that I do so much prep work before I get you to the steps because I want to make sure that you're with me and tracking. And once I know that you and I are in the same place, then I can write about the steps and the results. That's different if I'm writing a review, because then I want to tell you, hey, why did I even decide to write this review? What was the trigger? And then of all the choices of criteria to use, which ones did I pick? And then now that I've told you these are the picks, what do I mean by these terms? And now let me give you the review and the conclusion. And that's different from an interview. And in an interview, most people jump straight into the Q&A, which I call step 4, right? They jump straight into it and you go, wait, you haven't gotten me excited about reading this yet. So how did you find this person? And what makes this person significant? And give me your best introduction for this person. And now let's hear what they have to say. When you do that, you have prepped your audience to really pay attention to this incredible interview you did, but you got to do the work to get them there. And then summarize it with key takeaways, because people are going to scroll to the bottom. They just want to see the summary and go, oh, this is really great. Let me go up and read, the interview. And then who is this person? And they just read the article backwards, and that's okay, but you've given it all to them. The same thing happens with research, right? You need a different structure. You need a structure that says, first I want to give you context, then I want to tell you here's the discovery, and then here's the insight, right? Here's my takeaway from this. And here's how we apply that in the context we're in. And here's my challenge to you so that you can take it forward and apply it as well. And of course, I end with maybe one of the hardest articles to write, the hardest types of articles to write, and that's an opinion. If you're writing an opinion, it's likely because you want to change someone's mind, or you hope that there's a chance you'll change someone's mind, and you can't do that directly. You got to do it a little surreptitiously. You got to come along from the side, and that means I normally start with history. This is the way things used to be, and I'm telling you a story, but I'm telling you a story about something else, right? So that you're not really thinking that I'm talking to you about the thing I'm about to talk to you. And I tell you this story, right? And then when I come at the end of that story, I make this observation about the story, an observation that I hope you agree with. And you go, yeah, that is true. And then I translate the context to where I really want to be, because I already got you agreeing with me there. Now I got to bring it into this new context, and I translate that observation into here and give you my final opinion, and then either end with a conclusion or ask you a question. Those are hard posts to write, but it's a lot easier for me when I have a structure, when I know this is paint by the numbers, or it's like Mad Libs, I'm going to fill in the blanks, but I know the structure to write these posts. So that was it. That was my quick summary of how to be a better blogger. I hope it was helpful to you. Of course, if you have questions, you can always hit me up on Twitter at Chris Lema.